Okay, so picture this. You finally got to that amazing vacation rental you booked like ages ago. You know, the one like nestled in a cute little village and maybe it's overlooking the ocean or something, a hot tub on the deck calling your name. And you're so ready to like completely forget about everything, embrace the vacation vibes. But then you get to the door and you reach for the handle and you notice something. Or really, you notice something's missing.
Oh.
There's no mezuzah on the doorframe.
Oh,
And if you're anything like me, you might be flipping through all the Jewish traditions, you know, and wondering, wait, is this something I need to deal with? Is my relaxing vacation turning into some big halakhic debate?
Well, it's so interesting you say that, because this question of what to do about a vacation rental without a mezuzah actually opens up this whole debate in Jewish law about what actually makes a place a residence versus just like a temporary stay.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so the source we're looking at dives into this distinction using the Hebrew terms b'delas for renter, like someone who's really there for a bit, and goalfes to talk about someone who's more of a transient guest just passing through.
So I can't just say, well, I'm only here for a week. I'm going to leave all the Jewish law back home with my suitcases.
Not really. You know, Jewish law loves to get into the details.
Always.
The source actually lists out 8 differences between being a renter, a keja, and a guest. A koch.
Okay, 8 differences. I'm ready. Spill the tea. What's number 1? How do I know if I'm like a resident in the eyes of Jewish law, even if it's temporary?
All right, so the first one might surprise you. It's all about inheritance.
Inheritance? You mean like wills and stuff?
Exactly. So
Okay.
the source says that if a renter, or if something were to happen to them during their rental time, they actually have a claim to the property that's strong enough to be passed on in a will.
Whoa, wait, really?
But a transient guest, they just don't have that same connection to the place.
Wow, okay, so even a temporary place could be part of my legacy, at least theoretically. That's wild. Okay, what else is there on this list of renter versus guest?
Okay, so let's say you're really loving that hot tub you mentioned. You're really enjoying yourself and you totally lose track of time.
Happens to the best of us.
Right. So if it was a hotel, they could technically kick you out pretty fast if you stay past checkout. But a renter, even a short-term one, has rights. They can't just be tossed out on the street. There are legal protections.
It's like my hot tub squatter dreams actually have some legal basis, at least in Jewish law. This is way more complicated than I thought it would be. What other legal issues are hiding in my vacation rental?
Well, this next one's something I bet we've all thought about on vacation and hoped it wouldn't happen to us.
Oh.
Who's responsible if something breaks?
Oh, you mean when the light burns out? Or the plumbing decides to stop working right when I need it most? Yeah, that's not the kind of souvenir you want to bring home.
Exactly. So the source says if you're a renter, you might be responsible for those small repairs, especially on short stays. But if you're just a guest, a kiret, then it's really on the owner or the management company to take care of it.
So note to self, pack a plunger and maybe some duct tape.
Right.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here. It's like renters have more responsibility, but that also means they have more control over the space. Kind of like if it was their own home.
You're getting it. And that leads right into another difference the source makes. How much control you have over how the place looks.
Oh, interesting. Tell me everything.
Okay, imagine this. You open the door to your rental, and the decor is, let's just say, interesting.
Like clashing colors and weird art.
Exactly. Now, if you're a renter, you might feel like you could swap out a painting or hide that couch with the blanket. But if you're just a guest, you're stuck with whatever they give you, even if it hurts your eyes.
So it's not just about the length of the trip, but also how much I can like make the place my own that plays into this renter versus guest thing? Huh. I'm starting to think those vacation rental listings don't always tell the whole story.
You got it.
Yeah.
And it really gets at the heart of how Jewish law sees this whole thing of making a space yours, even for a little while.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to that mezuzah question we started with.
Right, because right now I'm imagining myself with tools and a paintbrush, maybe calling my lawyer about my will, and I still don't know if I need to get a mezuzah.
Well, the source we're looking at today says that this difference between being a chorus just passing through and someone who's really living there even temporarily is super important when it comes to the mezuzah question.
So let me get this straight. If I'm just at a hotel for a couple nights, I'm probably fine. But what about this vacation rental where I'm basically setting up camp?
Exactly. The source makes a really strong case that vacation rentals, especially the ones you rent for more than a few days, they're more like being a renter.
Okay, so what makes my little rented beach house different from a hotel room in Jewish law?
It's about the whole experience. You know, when you rent a vacation spot, you're usually using it way differently than a hotel. You're making dinner, unpacking all your stuff, maybe even moving the furniture around a bit. You're making it your home, not just crashing there for a night or two.
So it's not just being there physically, but also how much I'm actually living there, even if it's just for a short time.
That's it. And the source says the difference between core and kaluza, it makes a big difference when it comes to needing a mezuzah.
So we're saying if you're renting a vacation place and you want to treat it like your own place for a bit, Jewish law says you probably need a mezuzah, but this is Jewish law, so I'm guessing there are different opinions about this, right?
You know it. The source does talk about another argument from Rabbi Amichai.
Okay, tell me more about what Rabbi Amichai says.
Rabbi Amichai seemed to think the length of the stay is really important. He says that for super short rentals, like maybe a long weekend, there might be more flexibility about the mezuzah. He compares it to staying in a hotel where you usually don't need one.
So it's like a sliding scale. The shorter the trip, the less likely you need mezuzah.
Exactly. Rabbi Amichai is pointing out how short a really short stay is. It's more like a quick visit, more than hey.
But this is fascinating. We've got this idea of what makes a residence versus just visiting that plays a big part in the mezuzah question. And then there are other opinions, like what Rabbi Amichai says, that make it even more interesting.
Yes, and it shows how Jewish law is always like having a conversation with itself. It's always adapting to new situations and making us think hard about how these old ideas apply in our lives today.
I love that. So we've covered a lot, but let's make this practical for our listeners who are planning their next trip and are maybe a little confused about this mezuzah thing now. What advice would you give them?
Great question. The main thing to remember is that Jewish law usually says the homeowner or renter is responsible for the mezuzah, not the owner of the vacation rental. So unless you specifically booked a place that says it has a mezuzah, don't assume it will be there.
Okay, so it's on the renter, not the owner most of the time. But what about those צימר rentals you hear about, especially in Israel? Those are usually for Jewish travelers, right?
That's right. צימר rentals are often for Jewish guests, and lots of owners do put up mezuzahs to make them feel welcome. It's a really nice thing to do. But again, don't just assume it'll be there.
So if having a mezuzah is important to you, definitely check with the owner or the website before you book. Don't be afraid to ask. We've gone over a lot. We've talked about the main legal ideas, different opinions, even how to decorate a rental. But before we finish, there's one last thing from the source. I want to mention something that really got me thinking. So, we've been talking about all this legal stuff about mezuzahs and rentals, but the source also mentions this idea of the mezuzah being like spiritual protection, and that really stuck with me. It's one thing to think about it practically, but it's like there's this whole other deeper meaning there too.
Like we're not just talking about a thing, but like a connection to something bigger, something older than us.
Yeah, exactly. And it made me think about how even when you're on vacation, trying to get away from everything, you still want to feel safe, feel at home.
If anything, being somewhere new might even make you want that feeling of home even more. Like you need that reminder of what makes you feel grounded.
That's such a good point. So maybe for people who do this tradition, the mezuzah isn't just about the rules, but about bringing that feeling of peace of home with them wherever they go. It's like a physical reminder of something bigger than themselves.
I love that. And, it makes me think about how that idea goes beyond just this one tradition. We all look for that feeling of connection, of meaning, especially in new places.
So if we forget about all the details about Sanus and NLS and all that, what's the most important thing for our listeners to take away from all this?
I think it all comes down to this. The mezuzah, whether you see it religiously or just appreciate what it represents, it makes us think about what actually makes a place home, what turns a place you're just staying in into somewhere you can really relax and be at peace.
It reminds us that even when we're just visiting, we can still make a place meaningful, create a little bit of home wherever we are.
And you know what? Being curious about how other people create that feeling of home might even help you connect with them in unexpected ways. Imagine talking to the owner of your vacation rental about the mezuzah, or even why there isn't one. You never know what you might learn, or what you might have in common.
That's such a great thought. So to everyone listening, we'll leave you with this. The next time you're at your vacation rental, really look around and notice the little things, the things that make it feel welcoming, that have history behind them, that someone chose for a reason. And even if you don't have a mezuzah with you, think about what you do bring with you, the things you do that make you feel grounded and at peace wherever you go. Until next time, happy travels and happy deep diving.